Aikwe, Nakamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. Today we will be talking about my December 2020 wrap-up. December was an interesting month in terms of it being a little busy in terms of work. December was very hectic, not to mention the holiday season and just not feeling the spirit of it really, and just doing the motions but not feeling the spirit of it. It just felt like traditional obligation to a certain degree, which is making me reflect on what I can do in the future to make Christmas and the holiday season more my own, because I feel like it's not just COVID. I feel like it was also our holidays have been, I apologize if you can hear my dog whining. Holidays have been different the last couple years, with my grandparents kind of giving up the mantle of having it in their house and going south for the winter. It's not the same, particularly after my brother passed. It's been hard to get that magic back that we used to have at my grandparents' house. So in terms of reading for December, I read 5 books, which was 2,183 pages. 3 of those books I read audibly through my library. 2 of them were physical. 3 were fantasy, 2 of which had sci-fi elements to them. 1 historical romance and 1 contemporary thriller. And then in terms of star ratings, I have 1 2.5 star, 2 3 stars, 1 3.5 star, and 1 4.75 stars, which approximately is like an average of 3.3. So the first book I read for December, I'm not going to talk too much about because I do have a review up already, but that is Race to the Sun. This is usually what I do. It's Race to the Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, and this is a Navajo-inspired story. It's an indigenous book, authored book. It's an indigenous-inspired book. This is an indigenous review. This is not an Own Voices review. I am not Navajo. I feel like I have to reiterate that. Indigenous tribes, nations, and peoples are not monolithic. We have different experiences, different belief systems. Some may have similarities, but ultimately we are different. I am not going to get into the complexities that is Rebecca Roanhorse writing about Navajo culture, but this is a Rick Riordan Presents Navajo-inspired story following Najoni Begay, who is a normal 7th grade girl. She likes spaghetti, she likes playing basketball, and she kind of she has these schemes of becoming the popular kid in school in order to feel accepted and to help her brother from being bullied. Except Najoni can see monsters, and one of the monsters in particular that she sees is her dad's potential new boss. But when warning her father of this, he doesn't believe her until he ends up getting kidnapped by this monster, and it's up to Najoni, her little brother Mac, and their friend Davey to go on this adventure to save her father. So along the way they meet multiple companions of Navajo legend, and as well as holy people. It's an interesting book. Like I said, I have a review up that I'll link in the cards as well as in the description down below. But ultimately, I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I liked some of the messages. Some of the message I also felt were repetitive, which makes sense for middle grade. But for me, which I understand, I'm not the targeted audience for this. It was a little too much. Though some of them I appreciated. So in terms of the importance of language, I appreciated that. But when it came to Najoni's self-confidence, it was a little tiring. I also felt that Najoni kind of grated on me. I'm not a fan of not liking the main protagonist. Not like I dislike her, and I don't think she was made out to be an unlikable character. I think we have a personality conflict. She does have anger issues from abandonment and needing to work through that, and I don't feel like that was fully fledged out. And I did appreciate the landscape of this book in terms of like the environment and everything. Rebecca Roanhorse is very, I've said this before, is very good at pulling me in despite some of the qualms I may have. and I am interested to see if this becomes a series where it will head. I believe most Rick Riordan Presents are series. However, because this was published in 2020, I haven't yet seen any announcements or anything on Goodreads about there being a sequel to this. In terms of content warning for this book, there is bullying, as well as some depictions of violence. I don't think it's all too bad, but I'm trying to think in terms of younger audiences, what I would want to know. But there is bullying in here. There is a sense of abandonment by a parent. There is threat to life, depictions of violence. So just a heads up. The next book I read was Sleeping Beauties by Stephen King and Owen King. This was a add-on back in 2017 for Book of the Month. And at the time I really enjoyed the cover. I still really enjoy this portion, but I have come to realize I dislike the fact that Stephen King and Owen King's names are so huge comparably to the title. This book basically is a fantasy with sci-fi elements to it that women are falling asleep. There's like a sickness going around and women are falling asleep and unable to wake up. They're calling it the aurora. And basically once women fall asleep, there becomes these webbings that cocoon their bodies, and they can't wake up. If you tear the webbing away from them, they will wake up, but they are not themselves. They are indeed very feral, and it can be very dangerous. So we follow a particular town over by the Appalachians on the east side of the United States. I believe it's like it was inspired by North Carolina area or West Virginia area, that section. So we're following this town and kind of like an example of how society would react if women were to fall asleep. So basically how men or with Stephen King's writing, how men would react if women fell asleep and didn't wake up, and they didn't know what was going on. This was an interesting book. I can't say that I necessarily enjoyed it. I did read through all of it. This was one of the ones I read audibly through my library. However, the emotion in it evicted from me. I found that it was hard for me to want to start it back up just because it was very bleak. It is one of those horrors that the author inserts something that's not normal to society to see how society would react, and I felt that it was fairly accurate in a way. So it was, very, very dark. This is a very heavy book. Content warning for death, graphic depictions of death and violence and injury, gun violence, misogyny, sexual assault, sexual abuse, domestic violence, drug use, alcohol use, racism, xenophobia. I think that's everything. Throughout this, particularly throughout the first half of this book, I often wondered if this is Stephen King's response to Trump being elected. As one, there were multiple digs at him throughout the book. Mostly because it was interesting. There was also multiple mentions that the United States isn't responding to this emergency of women falling asleep. So that was curious. I don't know. There was multiple times where I'm like, this feels like a response. And I also know when going through the reviews, there were multiple people having issue with the fact that Stephen King put his political views in this book, views that they weren't happy about because of the politicalness of this book, saying that they wanted to escape when reading and to keep political views out of books, which I think is horseshit. Stephen King has been known to be against Trump, so I feel like it's really kind of, if you don't want to hear any of his political views, don't read his book. Question Stephen King's use of Native culture in terms of his horror. This is my first Stephen King, and in this book in particular, a character mentions the fact that there's brown moths everywhere. Like, this town's infested with them, and they're actually kind of a conduit for what is actually causing the women to fall asleep. And it's mentioned that an indigenous nation or people believe that brown moths are a symbol of sleep and dreams. So I don't... Like, it's not a direct connection to the sleeping, but it's like the fact that he put that in there makes me question what his deal is with indigenous culture and making it horror. Is it white guilt? There was at one point where I was up at 3 a.m. just kind of thinking about it, going, why put indigenous culture into, why are white authors putting indigenous culture as a horror? Is it white guilt? Is it because like they believe that they are gonna end up having their comeuppance because of what happened to us? Like, what's going on? Like I said, this is my first Stephen King, but I am well aware of Pet Sematary. Would have liked to see more of a dynamic with this book in terms of how other people would react, or other parts of other societies, because the town we do follow in here is mainly white with a couple of black characters thrown in. I would have liked to... It'd be interesting to see this perspective, or this idea of a book from another perspective, or like an indigenous perspective, or like even another continent. So like I said, it's definitely one like thought in depth about. However, I wouldn't say I necessarily enjoyed it, nor would I necessarily read it again. The next book I read was My Sister the Serial Killer by Oreen Khan Braithwaite. This is a contemporary thriller that is set in Nigeria. We follow Koredad, who is having to clean up her sister's mess. Her sister has killed another boyfriend, and this is the third one. Korede is starting to have some mixed feelings about it. Her sister claims that it's in self-defense. However, this is the third time and she's really starting to question it, but she doesn't know what to do, either to be on her sister's side and believe her sister or turn her in. She doesn't really know. But then when her sister starts dating a doctor that Korede works with, Korede is a hospital nurse. So when her sister starts dating a doctor that Korede loves, she really starts to question what she should do. Should she warn the doctor? Should she protect her sister? What's going to happen? This was ultimately a really interesting book. It's relatively short as well. I believe the audiobook was like 4 hours long. It was very entertaining in terms of like the whole time I felt tense. Like I wasn't sure what Korede was going to do. It wasn't as thrillery as I was hoping for, but it was still a fun read. I think I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Like, there was nothing inherently wrong with it. I enjoyed it. And then content warning for death, domestic violence, graphic depictions of injury. So the next book that I read was The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. And this book follows several people through 1957 Spain during the dictatorship of General Francisco Franco. We follow an American young man who is wanting to be a photojournalist. His dad is like big in the oil companies, and his mom's a descendant of Spanish descent, and they go to Madrid to try to get into a deal with Spain in terms of oil. And this American, the young man Daniel, he thinks it's going to be a great time to capture photos so that he can enter into a contest so he can go to photojournalism school, because his dad doesn't want to pay for that. He wants him to go into the oil industry like him. And then we also follow Anna, who is a maid at the hotel that the American family is staying at. Anna has very many secrets. Her family was kind of torn apart by Spain's government, and to be able to survive, they have to keep their heads low and just keep silent. And so when Anna meets Daniel, she feels that Daniel will never be able to capture what it truly means to live in Spain, to have lived in Spain. And she believes that he's just a spoiled tourist. So we follow a couple of other perspectives, but mostly that's the two focuses that we have in here. This is a historical romance. There is content warning for graphic depictions of death and injury, death of a parent, or death of both parents, mentions of child death also corrupt government, misogyny, and mentions of miscarriage. And ultimately, I enjoyed this book. I thought it was fun. I haven't read anything about Spain before, and I'm very curious about Spain's history now, so I really appreciate Rita Sepetys for that. I have read her other books before, and it felt kind of meandering. This one, I feel like she definitely had growth in her writing. However, I don't care what the time period is, I get upset when the plot is hinged around people keeping secrets. Anna, it makes sense. Daniel, it does not. And it just drove me nuts the whole time, particularly because his weren't so much keeping secrets for the sake of keeping secrets because he thought he was going to get in trouble. It was because he was deciding he didn't want to worry someone. And that bugs me. Particularly when they, of course, the secrets end up coming out and then nothing really happens. So it makes me question, why was this even done? So that kind of bothered me. There was a lot of like different plot points in here that I felt like, well, there was really no point in that because I thought it was going to be bigger than expected, and it wasn't. I think this is an unpopular opinion because all the reviews I've seen for this are giving this one praise. One thing I do really appreciate that Rita did, particularly after listening to her author's note, this was another one that I listened to through my library, was that she talks about having to come to this book from an outside perspective because that's how she researched it. She's not from Spain. So when she was researching for this book, there was a lot of response to her going, you'll never truly know. And that was kind of it. And she's like, but I want to know. And so Daniel kind of has that same response of like, he wants to know, but he will never quite understand. He will never quite get it because he didn't live through it. So that I really appreciated that she recognized that she had to come from that perspective. I haven't read any own voice reviews for this, so I'm curious about that. This is a historical romance, so we kind of, it's the assumption that Daniel and Anna get together. That I kind of figured, but it didn't really move me at all. I wasn't necessarily rooting for him the whole time. Basically, I was just like, Daniel, if you get Anna in trouble, I'm gonna fucking kill you. But ultimately, towards the end, it wasn't their relationship I was pulling for. It was his relationship with other people that he met in Madrid. The mentorship type relationships that he had. That I thought I really appreciated and I really enjoyed. 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad. But Melita, what about your December TBR? Where are those 3 books? Yeah. So if you watch my December TBR, you'll know that these are the 3 that I had wanted to read. And if you've done the math, you'll know that I only got to one of them. I only got to The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. These 2, I do still hope to read. I'm still excited to read them. I'll just have to somehow read them in future TBRs because I do still really want to read them. Though this is the one I managed to get to. This one took me all of December. Like I said, December was weird in that I felt like I could only like listen to my books because there were so many like things I had to do physically. And by the time I usually try to read before I go to bed, and December just kind of like zapped the energy out of me. So by the time I hit the pillow, I was out. So this one like took me from December 8th until I didn't quite make it to midnight on the 31st. I may have stayed up till 3 in the morning to finish it. So technically it went into 2021, though how I am, I don't consider it the next day until I fall asleep. So that's what I'm going with. So this was my last book for 2020. City We Became is basically, it's hard for me to explain it without giving anything away, so I'll just read the synopsis. Every great city has a soul. Some are ancient as myths and others are as new and destructive as children. New York City, she's got 6. So basically, city in this is very much a fantasy sci-fi. Cities have personalities. If you've been to a city, you know. If you live in a city, you understand. And in this in particular, these cities have personalities that or have avatars that reflect that personality of the city. So New York does have, the city also has boroughs. So each borough has its own personality and therefore its own avatar. And so they're on a mission to not only find each other, but find the thing that's trying to destroy New York City. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was complex and interesting. Learning about all the boroughs and their personalities, I think it's a really unique and interesting way to understand a city. I've never been to New York City, and I haven't read any reviews from people who live in New York City. N.K. Jemisin lives in New York City. Content warning. N.K. Jemisin does not do subtlety when it comes to racism. It is very blatant on who is being racist or xenophobic, homophobic. They actually mentioned this in a tweet that I really appreciated, that they were just tired of the subtle analogies or metaphors that science fiction tends to have about racism. And it's gotten to the point in our society that we can't do subtlety because then no one lays claim. So they are very blatant, and who is racist and who is xenophobic and who is homophobic. So that I honestly really appreciated, though it was a little nerve-wracking. So that was very interesting. I also want to say, content warning, just the way they talk about cities. The cities are alive. When they become so big, they are birthed, and there is very much that language with that. And with that comes language of like miscarriage and what you would get from like a human birth or anything that gives birth that has that same language. Not all the cities survive. So bear that in mind if you're sensitive to that kind of vocabulary. There's quite a bit of racism, profiling. I personally don't think there's a whole lot of like graphic depictions of violence or injury. I mean, there is violence. Just the depth of this book was really entertaining. So I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I did manage to read it before bed. I always like to be able to finish a chapter and then go to bed. It's just somewhere where I'm not leaving off in the middle of something. That was not the case for this book. Some of these chapters were up to 40 pages long. And so by the time I was 20 pages in, and I was ready for bed, and I find that I had another 20 pages to go before I could actually stop. So I would just stop in the middle of the thing, which isn't that big of a deal, but for me it like really kind of irked me. It also made me think there was also just sections that I think could have been broken up a bit more. So these are the books that I have read, plus My Sister the Serial Killer for December, last month of 2020. If you've read any of these, please let me know your thoughts and feelings in the description down below, or you can reach out to me on any other platform. I am on Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and now Storygraph. Please, no spoilers if you do comment in this comment down below. That is 2020. I will have a review for 2020 as a whole coming out here shortly. Please check out some of my raise awareness links down below. Links that I will have down below is for Turnout. This is a LGBTQ organizational nonprofit group in the Bay Area, so San Francisco area of California. They were hit particularly hard in 2020 with the lack of donations, which is understandable. Everyone's kind of in a crisis, but they are a great organization in terms of they help out the LGBTQ community with food, with volunteer opportunities, with mentorships, with Pride Parade, I believe some other huge events like that, but they're constantly offering volunteer opportunities to get people involved, to get people helping out, as well as they take donations. So please share and donate where you can. If you can, no pressure. If not, like I said, everyone's kind of in a crisis this year. Please understand that just because the links are not in my raise awareness, that it isn't important. Please do your research and share where you can. Otherwise, I hope that you are in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading. I will talk to you again here soon. Chew.